Hey everyone, welcome back to Hills and Holders Homestead. Back again with another short one, and just to kind of cover a little topic here, standby generators, or even generators that you have on hand for convenient uses out on your property away from where you don't have electricity and stuff. So while I was going through the building today, getting stuff packed away for the winter and everything, and our travel stuff packed away, I went ahead and got my gasoline generator, and I pulled it out, and I try to start it every month. So what I'll do is I'll take it out and start it up, let it run for about 5 minutes or so, and make sure everything is good with it, and shut it off, put it back away. Always make sure you keep a full tank in it, full fuel tank, or full of fuel in a tank, because empty space in a fuel tank, especially in an area like with this building where there's no heat or air in this building, because it's off-grid, it's just basically a standalone building. It experiences the temperature fluctuations of the heat and the cool and stuff, so you can definitely develop condensation and water in your fuel if you don't take care of that. Now, I always keep Sta-Bil on hand for the fuel storage additive, and I make sure it stays in there, and I keep that tank as full as I can, not overflowing full, but as full as it'll allow me, within reason, and that way you don't run a risk of creating condensation in it. When I shut it off, I leave it running, and I'll turn the fuel valve off and let it burn off the rest of the fuel that's in the line and in the carburetor, and that prevents any damage to your carburetor, prevents your floats from sticking or anything like that, in the case that you would have varnish develop or in there from setting in with the fuel in it and everything. So use a good fuel stabilizer, make sure you run the fuel out of it, and then and that's how you shut it off and turn your power button off and everything. If it takes like disposable fuel filter or disposable air filters, make sure you have a couple of those on hand. If it has inline or fuel filters, any part of it, make sure you have a couple of those on hand. You can get these little, especially for like the gravity fed fuels like these are, you can get a little basket type filter that you can put in line, and that'll help prevent any sediment that should you get any dirty fuel or anything. And that'll prevent a lot of problems in the future. Make sure you have a couple extra spark plugs on hand, and that way if spark plug does go bad or anything like that, you have another spark plug to replace it. Now, these simple steps will help you in case something happens. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is a couple of things that kind of spurred this. Is number one, I just looked at the weather a little bit ago, and we come home today or last night and looked at the weather. It's like 84 degrees today. It's supposed to be 80 for the next, I think, 4 or 5 days in the 80s, and then we're immediately going from the 80s down to 60s, mid 60s. So we're looking at almost a 20-degree temperature change just over the next 5 or 6 days. And while that's not a huge, concern, typical here, because we're moving into the fall season, it does, create issues where you could have from the higher temperatures to the lower temperatures, especially at night, because you're looking at probably 50s, low 50s at night. That's where you can get that condensation to form in your fuel tanks if they're not full, and if you're not using a good fuel stabilizer. Also with that is where we were in the Outer Banks. That whole area down there is one main highway that runs pretty much the length of the Outer Banks, and it's Highway 12, North Carolina Highway 12. That's it. I mean, that's the only way in and out of that island unless you fly out or you use a ferry or boat type of thing. And, getting out of there where we were pretty far south down there, and we were at the top of the Hatteras, what they refer to as Hatteras Island. And, man, I tell you, it was 2 lanes in and out of there. And it was pretty unnerving to think that if something would happen, if there was a hurricane. Now, usually they give plenty of notice and people get out of there on time. And the area where we were is like 175 permanent residents. I don't know how many are there as vacations, but like the majority of the houses were vacation houses. Very few of them were permanent residents. And, people who aren't familiar with hurricanes, not used to experiencing hurricanes or anything, like hillbillies. I would just, if we were down there, and of course it is hurricane season, if we were down there and they should say, got a hurricane coming in the next 2 or 3 days, I'm not taking a day to get things packed up and get out of there. I'm packing stuff and we're shagging out of there now, because where we were, I think, the house that we rented was the highest elevation because even on the dunes above the beach, I think probably at best you were 6, 8, 10 feet, if you could find a good high dune, maybe 12 feet in elevation from sea level. And you know, you're between the ocean and a sound, and the sound is huge. You can look clear across the sound and not see any land in most areas. And you've got an island that's half-mile wide, you know, in most places, and even more narrow in a lot of other places. So that's not a place you want to be if a hurricane comes in. You know, you get storm surge. The road, Highway 12 down there, they just finished this bridge down there they call the Jug Handle Bridge, that comes down along the Pamlico Sound where we were, because there's almost a mile, if not more, of Highway 12 that they've had to permanently close down because the storm surge and stuff has completely washed that road out and covered it with sand, and they can't keep it cleaned off. So it's literally shut down, you know, a mile section, if not more, of Highway 12. And that's why they had to build that bridge, that Jug Handle Bridge, all the way around the edge of the sound there. So that was pretty interesting to see. And of course, they have several houses that are right on the beaches down there, like right on the beach, water washing up onto the decks and the porches and the stuff, that now they have to move. And there's a private road there that runs behind them along that beach, because it's a whole private community down there, that they've actually closed off, and they're now going to allow them to move these houses back up off of the beach onto the street. And that's where these houses are now going to sit, is on that street, because of the erosion of the beaches and stuff like that from the storms and everything that they've had over the years. So that's going to be interesting to see when we go down next year, because they were actually in the process of starting to move a couple of the houses, getting them, you know, prepared to move them and everything. So I'm kind of curious to see what that turns out to be. But that's just an area that I was like, the whole time I was down there, I'm thinking, okay, so something happens, what's the best way to get out of here? And I'm looking at maps, just kind of looking at satellite photos, and I'm going, my only choice is Highway 12, or find somebody with a boat and either hold them at gunpoint or steal the boat, because you're never going to pay somebody enough to get you out of there in that kind of situation. And I was joking about holding them at gunpoint and stealing the boat. But it's just a situation where you looked at that, and with your family and stuff, you're like, man, if I need to get out of here, I need to get out of here. And everybody else is going to be thinking the same thing. So that was a little bit of my uncomfortableness while we were down there, is if something would happen, we had to get out of there. There's pretty much one way. Now, they do have an emergency ferry down there, but I'm sure it's very limited in how many people in vehicles it can hold in one crossing. And it's not like a 5-minute crossing across that sound, because where we were, you couldn't see the land on the other side of that sound. So, and if there's problems with water, that's not the way that I want to go. I would much rather get on dry land, stay on dry land, and get out of there. But while I was doing everything just today, just kind of replaying a lot of that stuff in my mind and thinking about that, I thought, you know what, I'm going to pull the generator out. I haven't done it in a while, and run that and do the maintenance on it that I need to. Make sure you got plenty of oil. Make sure you got everything that you need specifically for that equipment and everything, especially with seasons changing like they are and the weather's changing. And, you know, have a plan ahead of time, and have backups for your backups. And that's just what I want to kind of reinforce there. But anyways, just the way my mind works, I get to an area like that, I kind of always assess where I'm at and what my options are in bad situations, and what we could potentially do. And that's just learned behavior from the years of, you know, working as a paramedic and being in emergency management and stuff. Just the way that I think. Anyways, share that with you. If you do maintain your equipment, like I said, start at least once a month or once every 2 months. Here's a reminder if you haven't done it yet. If you don't do it, here's a little bit of education to tell you you need to start doing that. And that way you're prepared should anything happen. Keep you and your family safe, and make sure you're prepared for whatever may be coming. That's going to be it. Keep working to starve that system for that system starves you. Get prepared. Stay prepared. Take care, and God bless.